And we are live with the PHU Dynasty Podcast, episode 16. We're just racking these things up at this point. Pretty soon we're going to be at 100. We're not even going to realize it. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Los Angeles Lambs owner, and my co-host, James Seafield. How are you doing tonight in the Bucks attire?
Yeah, always got to be repping the Bucks. No, I'm doing great. You know, the season is upon us. A lot has happened in our league and also in the NFL as a whole that's changed some things up. So, we're going to get into all that and, see how the landscape of the league looks just, about a week away now.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. We, as advertised in the title, we have the latest win total lines from Dynabook, presented by James Seafield. That is, we'll get to that later in the show. We've had some trades that went down recently. We've also had some team branding changes and relocations to go through. Preseason talk. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff. So let's just hop right into it because this is going to be a doozy of a show. So we're going to start off with some recent trades. So we had a couple of, I think 3 total trades in the last week or two. Not so much blockbusters, James, but these are still league altering, if you will. These are guys that you will see. You will see these guys in flex spots and tight end slots too. So let's start with that first one. And first of all, let's preface this by saying these are all chili cheese fries trades. This man is committing to the fire.
We are full force rebuilds. Just blow
this
the
is
whole
one of the
thing up.
finest. It's the finest rebuilds I've seen. I mean, it when you compare it to Alex's, this feels like a full rebuild. This feels like the whole thing.
Well, there was a lot more the cheese fries were a playoff team last year, right? Like, let's not forget that they were a 4 seed. Like, I think they were 4th or 5th in points, but the meat of the team has deteriorated, being, Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell, the big horses that helped him win his title. They've kind of deteriorated. And so has Odell Beckham there. So that's part of the reason maybe why making these moves. The biggest thing that I think with the cheese fries rebuild is they have an anchor in Patrick Mahomes, right? So the thinking is a guy like Mahomes can play well into his 30s, and, the owner there, Tibbs, thinks that, hey, if I lose for 2-3 years, Mahomes will still be 28, 29. He'll be in his prime, and I can hit the ground running then with an influx of new young players. We'll see how it works out. It's going to be one of the more fascinating things of the next decade of PHU Dynasty football, right?
I thought about this too with Pat Mahomes. It's, he kept Mahomes, and this is kind of the only thing that's going to get him wins this year. So the fact that he has Mahomes, kind of dampens the fact that he's doing a full rebuild. Like, if you're doing a full rebuild, you kind of don't want to win, but you're not going to not play Mahomes. Like, it's
right.
You get called out for tanking immediately. I mean,
for the integrity of the league, he has to just keep Mahomes in his lineup every week, and he'll start random asses like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's a perfect player for a rebuild team. Just maybe he'll get hot and catch an 80-yard touchdown. Yours truly dropped him because I was tired of that roller coaster.
Yeah, I just don't want to look at it anymore. I totally understand.
Yeah. But with Mahomes there, he'll get a couple wins here and there, but the running back talent on his team is nothing. The wide receiver talent, in trading Odell, Antonio Brown, and Logan Thomas, I think that's like the last of the real, veterans with value. Now there could be a guy here and there on his team that pops off this year that maybe he'll try and sell off for a 2nd or 3rd, but his team has pretty much been stripped to the bare bones at this point.
Yeah, and that, to me, this is the perfect rebuild. Like, you do have that cornerstone quarterback, literally the number one quarterback. He's just one of those guys you don't want to get rid of. So you hold on to him. Yeah. You get 2 to 3 years. I think he's got 1st-round picks all the way into 2024. Multiple 1st-round picks in each one of those years.
He's got 4 1st-round picks, I think, the next couple years. That's the thing.
I think he has 10 over the next 3 years.
So, even if by some miracle, the cheese fries go on a run to the 6th seed, I don't think that's happening. But crazier things have happened in football. By the nature of him doing that, he would inevitably push other teams down. So the fact that he has so many 1st-round picks, it almost doesn't really matter if he does get wins. This year, I'd be pretty shocked if doesn't have the number 1 pick. But, next year or the year after, yeah, even if he has pick 2, 3, 4, well, he's going to have everybody else's first round pick. So he could always package those up or do whatever. You can get creative when you have a lot of draft picks.
Yeah. And speaking of first round picks with this first trade, so he acquired a 2024 first round pick.
Yeah.
And that came as a shock to me. Even though it is in the future, a couple years down the line, that doesn't matter to Tibbs. A first is a first is a first to Tibbs at this point. So it seemed like a little bit of an overpay on the part of the Andrew Scavelli and the Battle Axes. At the same time, Scavelli has always been prone to trade away his draft picks for proven talent. He loves proven vets. And every time I look back at a trade, it seems like Scavelli wins most of the time. So I feel like it's hard to doubt him.
The last big trade Scavelli and Tibbs made literally shifted the balance of power. Was that Todd Gurley, Aaron Jones, just shit fest 2 years ago?
It was Todd Gurley for what? Aaron Jones, a first round pick, like a couple other pieces.
It cost Tibbs the title the next year, basically, because Todd Gurley was crap. And
frankly, that may have tailspun him into this rebuild.
It kind of did.
If you have Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, it doesn't look that bad.
He paid for past production on Todd Gurley, and that's like a number one.
You don't do that
sin.
with running backs, right?
Not with running backs. You always want to get him on the up and up. We'll see how this works out for him going forward. But I saw the 2024 pick. I was like, well, that's it almost doesn't seem real. That's so far into the future. But look, I think this deal makes sense for both sides. Is it a slight overpay? Yeah, but I think on the Scavelli end of things, he can be like, well, look, it's a 2024 first. I don't really care at this point. So and for Tibbs, he already has, like you mentioned, so many first round picks. I guess he wants 3 years of picks lined up, which is admirable, but it's going to be a grind.
It's going to take a while. That's the thing. I mean, and like we said, he's really not playing for anything this year or next year at this point. So you might as well just load it up, see what happens. And for Scavelli, he kind of does have a little bit of a window with Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. So, what is a 2024 first round pick when you can, try to make your team good enough now to compete in the next couple of years. So I do think it's a decent trade for Scavelli. I hate to look at a first round pick for Odell. Basically, that's the only downside.
That's fair.
It's just the aesthetics.
We just talked about paying for past production. That could be a little bit of what this is with Odell. Like he hasn't really had a big season in a while. Now last year,
what are the odds that he gets to be a top 25 receiver this year? 0 to 100. I'd put it at 50-50. Okay, so you're higher on him than I am for sure.
Yeah, well, look,
I was going to put like 30. Before
he got hurt last year, he was having some pretty games. Like that Cowboys game comes to mind where I remember he single-handedly beat the Cowboys. I remember he had he scored on a reverse touchdown. You know what it was? It was like vintage Odell, where I remember he was great, and then he got the ACL injury. The Browns are a good team, though, which is weird to say too, but the Browns are going to be a contender. So in theory, Odell should contribute for that. They do like to run the ball, though, so he's going to be more of that wide receiver
kind of odd
2-3 mold. So. But
and just quickly to mention OJ Howard, not a ton of value right now. We might see a flash this year, but at this point, you just kind of wait and see, and hopefully maybe next year as a free agent he goes to a better situation, ends up getting some more targets. Who knows? Maybe he'll flourish somewhere else. But right now he's kind of just
it's more of a stash at this point, because he does not look ready to go after his Achilles tear last year.
Most guys don't even come back from that injury.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Moving on, we got the next trade, another cheese fries trade here. This time with the Swallows. This was an interesting one too, and this one we think that he may have undersold instead of oversold.
Yeah, when I first saw this one come through, and when I heard from Vince that this deal was coming down the pipeline here, I was like, whoa, yeah, I would take that too. I kind of feel like the cheese fries could have gotten at least a future third here in addition, because I think Antonio Brown and Logan Thomas are players that could pop off this year. Let's say he would have waited to trade them. It's not unrealistic to think he could have gotten a second for each player.
That's what I was just about to say. I feel like each of these players by themselves are worth two like a second and a second right there.
Yeah, and the reality is, we don't know where the Swallows are going to finish, but let's say he goes on a run to the title game, or he loses in the semifinals. Let's pick like 17, 18. It's really not that like.
I mean, from this year, you're looking at like Kadarius Toney, Diane Brown. So like,
I don't know. I feel like he could have done more on this one, especially Antonio Brown. In the Bucs offense could be really good. Logan Thomas.
I think Thomas is a good player. I really think Thomas. Not only that, he's got fresh legs. He's a late bloomer.
Right.
So who really knows what his upside is at this point? He played really well in the targets he got last year. At the end of the year, I think he was kind of averaging like 6, 7, 8 points a game. Like that's pretty much all you can ask for.
And they have a better quarterback this year.
Now they have a better quarterback. The guy likes to sling it around. I think Thomas is like a nice little. He might not be, like a great asset at tight end, but he's a definite depth player. And for the Swallows, who already have a solid tight end on their roster, like this is just good depth building. So I mean. I'm all for the trade for the Swallows. I think this is a huge win. Jared Cook is pretty much done after these next couple of years here, probably. Yeah, he's fine, but he's a throw-in. And then Foster Moreau, I actually really like his talent. He's just buried right now behind Waller. Behind
the Swallows guy, Darren Waller. And Darren Waller's had some mysterious injuries this whole preseason. Now all the reports are, it's fine, it's preseason. But again, until we see him back out on the field, who knows? Maybe he is injured. So, maybe that caused the Swallows here to make this move. But even regardless, he wanted to coin the term, or he coined the term defensive drafting.
That is defensive drafting.
Years ago. So he
defensive trading.
Defensive trading here, right? Well, the thing being here that like somebody else could look at Logan Thomas. Honestly, Logan Thomas was a guy that I was looking at. I'm kind of shaky about my tight end depth. I wasn't going to make this move now, but Logan Thomas was a guy I definitely had in mind. Hey, if I need a tight end, maybe I'll approach Tibbs to make a deal there. So who knows?
Yeah, I think this comes down to the base of team building model of just getting depth. Sure. You just got to get depth in this league. If, like you said, if a Waller injury happens, you're not going to replace that kind of production. But just having somebody to steady the ship, and I definitely think Logan Thomas can do that. So I really love this trade for the Swallows.
Well, yeah, it's a good move because sometimes it's better to be proactive about getting depth, right? Because if, let's say, Darren Waller got hurt and Vince scrambles, I got to trade, for Logan Thomas. Well, then the price might go up because someone like this will be like, you need a tight end. Oh, okay. So, it's a good move to be proactive, and
it makes sense for both sides. And we'll get to the last one. I don't think we talked about this last one in the last podcast, so I'll just mention it real quick. So another second round pick. Actually, this is a 2022 second round pick for Fournette.
Well, that is the next draft. That's the next draft.
Yeah, so that's the next one coming up. And I mean, like, to me, I love that trade for Tibbs. I think Fournette is basically toast after this year. Who knows where he goes next year, but I don't think he's worth a damn, really, to be honest. Unless Rojo gets hurt, even then, he's still going to split touches with Gio. I mean, this might be Scavelli doing a little homerism here.
Trying to get a Bucs guy on there.
Yeah, I would not have paid a second at all, personally. Yeah. Maybe a third.
A third, yeah, for sure. A second does seem a little rich. But the Bucs have, they are one of the top offenses again. One Rojo injury, and then Fournette plugs right in. They do rotate them, but it does seem like Fournette's going to be the odd guy out. Rojo's been sort of named the starter. We all know Gio is going to be heavily involved on third downs. Fournette's kind of like the shitty backup to both players. We'll see. He's a free agent after this year, so maybe he signs somewhere else next year and is better. But I think at best he would just be in another committee type situation.
Nobody's going to sign him to be
like their bell cow.
A super awesome bell cow running back. It's just not going to happen at this point. I also think, too, if Scavelli ends up being, kind of, if you're going with the under on Dynabook for Scavelli's win totals this year, this is a top 15 pick potentially for Leonard Fournette. I mean, that's a phenomenal value then at that point.
Well,
who knows? We'll see with that one. But right now, it looks like a slight overpay in my eyes. Moving on. So let's talk about some other topics here. The first one being we have a lot of teams that have hit the road. They have left their longtime franchises. This is our 11th year in this league, and we have 3 teams. You may have heard of two, but there's a third team now that I'm proud to announce.
Surprise team. Ooh.
A surprise team here on the PHU Dynasty podcast that is also changing their branding and team location. So let's get into it. So we'll start with the first one. And you all have seen this one. This is me.
I love it.
I think the Texas Armadillos it's a good vibe for the city. We thought that with the Galactic League, we didn't really want to confuse anyone with the Tatooine Raiders. Yes. So after 11 great years in Buffalo, we're gonna set up camp in Texas and headquarters here in Dallas, and we're gonna go with the Armadillos. Borrow the logo here from a minor league baseball team because I truly enjoy it. I definitely like the little circular logo up here too with the three.
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, the hats on the Armadillos, the cowboy hats.
It's hilarious. This minor league team is an Amarillo, and they call themselves the Sod Poodles, which is just tremendous to me. Like they're called the Soddies for short, because I guess that's what Texans call armadillos out here, is because they just hang out on your grass or whatever. So it's ridiculous. And sometimes they also call them Texas speed bumps too. So I love everything about the Armadillo brand. So. All right, so we have another announcement for a team relocation, and it's the Baton Rouge Bombers getting some new branding here. This was announced yesterday by Justin Sr., the general manager of the Bombers, and he's felt like this was the right time to also make the move after 11 years of good times as the Louisiana.
This team was first. A Bryce team. I don't even remember what were we? The Pink Tacos. Maybe?
That may have been the Pink Tacos actually. So let me rephrase and say 10 years, because I think Bryce only made it 1 year if I'm not mistaken.
I think maybe 2 or 3 or so.
I don't remember.
Regardless, but yeah, it's been a while of the Louisiana Hurricanes, so it's a big. It's
switch. A welcome change, and maybe this is what gets Justin over the hump. Maybe this is what the team needed. The team needed to get out of party town. New Orleans and move towards Baton Rouge, a nice sleepy town with some gambling, nothing crazy, no Bourbon Street. We'll see what happens. And then we have a third surprise team that is changing their logo. They're changing their team name and their team city. And that is the London Silly Nannies are changing to the Muskegon Muskrats. And I hope I'm getting that city right, but I think I am.
Yeah, sounded right to me.
I can't imagine it's Muskegon. That seems stupid. No, so I'm going to go with the Muskegon Muskrats. After his recent, it's perfect. It's perfect. I think after the move to Michigan, this makes a lot of sense for the franchise.
Yeah,
I can only imagine the memes that are going to come of this, though. The Muskrats just sounds like a dirty, just an awful dirty mascot. So this could be hilarious. You could see some excellent memes come out of this. But I do love the logo. It's got the Michigan colors, so
yeah, that's true.
I think it's a nice touch. And now we have to change any memes that anybody has created for the Silly Nannies now has to be changed to the Muskrats. So
yeah. So I guess this means the rebuild of the Silly Nannies is over, right? We turned the light switch on. This is kind of what
that seems. It kind of seems
we're ready to compete.
Like it's our time, and we're just going for the gold. So, so we got these 3 new team names and locations, and we also have branding for every single team. So I actually made up wallpapers for every single owner with their own mascot and uniform for the season. So I'll send those out to y'all personally in the next couple of days. But I'm going to also put a poll up in our Discord. I want to see who you guys think has the coolest uniform and branding, because I think there's some interesting options. I think I have a top 3 out of this group.
Well, you made them all, so you should.
Well, I know that, but so here's the deal, James. I did these all in 2 days, and frankly, some of them are better than others because I just blew through a couple of these. So
depends on your motivation on that particular day.
And I just feel like a couple of them just work so much better than the other ones. So I think my favorite in the clubhouse is the Long Gamers. Or the Elk. The Elk I just love the Elk team branding and colors.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna vote for one of those two probably, but I want to hear what everybody else has to say. So we'll keep this rolling. So we got some injuries to talk about. Some big ones.
This is this is obviously J.K. Dobbins. This one has had huge effects. And I'll touch on it more when we reveal the Dynabook win total lines later. But this injury alone caused me to change some things around. I mean, J.K. Dobbins was an ascending player. I'm very glad I haven't done too many redraft leagues because he's a player that I frankly wanted in a lot of redraft leagues. Now he's out for the year. And for Dan, it's pretty troubling because his running back depth before this injury was a little suspect. Now his top three were great, right? He has Dalvin Cook, Gibson, who he got last year, and then Dobbins. But now he just has those top two. And after those guys, there's not a whole lot of proven talent there. So we'll see how he gets through this.
Yeah, he's gonna see some negative repercussions from this. Obviously, I mean, this is a guy that was poised to have a breakout year by many accounts. I mean, I was pretty high on Dobbins too. I thought, from a redraft perspective, he was probably in that third round range.
Yeah.
With the potential to eventually be a first round pick next year if he played well in a high volume running offense. This is a brutal loss. And I don't know if there's really anybody on his bench that can kind of even get half of the production that Dobbins might have had this year. So this is going to be a potentially rough sled if there's a couple of other injuries on this team. If you get a Gibson injury or you, God forbid, get a Dalvin Cook injury, then it's going to look a little tough out there. We'll see, though. This is obviously, too, a huge bump to Gus Edwards.
Yes.
Or I believe Vince has Gus Edwards.
Yeah. Huge
so
bump.
That's and another team that needed a running back in the worst way after the Cam Akers injury.
Right.
So the Lord giveth and Lord taketh away, and
Yep. The fantasy gods always circle back around.
So tough break for Dan. Obviously, you never want to see that. But a great break for Vince. So we'll go to the next injury. It's Travis Etienne, the Muskrats running back. Muskrats running back, Travis Etienne. I truly didn't think he was going to be a gigantic contributor the first year, to be honest. Truthfully, I don't really have much faith in Urban Meyer. I think he stinks. I've always said
it's been a shit show already. He's in trouble for commenting on the vaccination status of players. He got in trouble for practices.
He's such a freaking head case, that guy.
He's honestly just a piece of shit.
I'm just so sick of him already, and it's been not even week one.
Yeah,
and I've been sick of him since the Tebow days, though. I mean, truthfully, the whole thing is just there's a little adversity strikes, and I have a health issue, and I gotta quit, and there's just always something wrong with Urban Meyer. When is there ever a time where things are just steady Eddie? It just doesn't seem like they're not.
Is he going to last a full season? I mean, what happens if the Jaguars are 2-8 and getting just pounded in submission? He might jump ship.
He might just say screw it.
He might pull a Nick Saban. He's done it before, so why would he do it again? But regardless, on Etienne, it hurts Alex because he's trying to speed the clock of this rebuild, and Etienne
supposed to be a starter this year.
Etienne was penciled in to be one of his starters, albeit his third running back, but. Now we got nothing there. This is a huge boost for you with James Robinson because now those carries that were in question, it's they don't really have a choice now but to give the ball to James Robinson again because they don't really have anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great boost for my team. Obviously, I was expecting a lessening of carries for Robinson this year. I mean, Carlos Hyde's still there. Good bump for Carlos Hyde, to be honest, too. I think Dan picked him up recently. This is a situation for the Silly Nannies where you said, we're trying to speed up the clock on the rebuild and, losing an electric talent.
It's a first round pick. I mean, this was pick, I think the fifth overall pick in our draft.
1.5 or 1.6 or something.
It hurts.
It's a tough blow. And he's a kind of guy, I think wasn't it a Liz Frank injury is what I saw?
It was. And those types of foot injuries for a speed back,
he might never come back the same. I mean, he might lose a step, and that's for this kind of guy where that's his entire game is speed. Yeah. I don't know. I'm concerned. That being
said,
I'll
bring up another former Clemson speed back, CJ Spiller. Was good for a couple years, and then once his speed kind of went away, it's tough for these. It's
once
tough
you
for these
lose
guys,
that step, it's tough, man. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really all that high on Etienne to begin with. I kind of had him towards the end of the first round in my rankings prior to the draft. But, he's still a talent. He's still a really good talent. And it's more of the situation that I don't like about, obviously, this with the whole Urban Meyer. And it seems like that offense really has no idea what they're doing at this point. So we'll see how it goes on the week one and see what we're looking at for real against a real defense, too. So on to the next injury. DeAndre Swift always seems like he's injured at this point. I mean, he's only been in the league a year. Another muskrat. It's correct. He's banged up. They're saying that he might not be ready for week one. Like going into redraft leagues, my thought is I really don't like to take guys that are banged up heading into week one. No. I just do not want to deal with it.
Well, because especially for a young player with a whole new system, and the coaches, Anthony Lynn and Dan Campbell, had been talking up the guy they signed, Jamal Williams, all offseason. And he's not a flashy talent, Jamal Williams, but he's a pro's pro. Like,
he's a quality back.
Yeah, you give him 15 to 18 carries, throw him 3 to 5 passes, he's fine. Now, the Lions wanted to run the ball, and I actually think they have an underrated offensive line. So I was like, there's actually probably room for both players to have fantasy value, especially because the Lions have no receivers. So, we're thinking maybe Swift's going to get involved in the passing game and all stuff. But if the dude can't even be on the practice field and learn the offense, we're hearing these very questionable to doubtful reports like 2 weeks ago.
I still haven't heard any updates saying he was good to go yet.
Yeah. So we're kind of just, what are we, 10 days away from, the season for most teams, aside from the Thursday night game? Like, I'd venture to guess he maybe doesn't play week one, maybe not week two, but even if he does play, it's going to be limited, and it may take him the first month of the season to kind of get up to speed. And by that point, the Muskrats might be 0-4, right? And
exactly. And the Muskrats don't have that kind of time. They need Swift to play at this point with Etienne out.
Especially with Etienne out, this one hurts. The Muskrats are in a tough spot because Swift is, it was a first round pick the year before. He's a guy that,
Alex was banking on him.
He's banking on him. And now it looks questionable at best for this year.
Yeah, it's questionable. And the fact that you're looking at Swift basically, even when he comes back, this could be a nagging injury throughout the season. So it's one of those situations where it might nag, and if Jamal Williams impresses in that week one while he's out, what does the split end up looking like? This regime has no ties really other than the general manager, I think. Maybe not even the GM. I don't know if they cleaned house entirely.
I think they did. I think they brought it.
They don't really care about DeAndre Swift at this point. So they're building their own squad, and they're still years away from winning anyway. So they might just go with their guy, and they might just play Jamal Williams. Who knows? Yeah. So we'll move on. This is on a lesser of scale than the last couple of guys we mentioned, but Irv Smith is one of those guys that everybody's kind of been talking about as a potential breakout guy. It's third-year tight end.
Absolutely. Well,
opportunity was there.
Rudolph's gone, right? They finally let him go. The Vikings don't really have a third receiver of note, right? It's Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and there's room for a third pass catcher. A lot of people thought Irv Smith would be that guy. He's flashed at times. It's an unfortunate injury. If anything, though, for the Elk, he has this giant roster crunch coming up. If anything, it almost helps him because now he gets to put a player on IR.
Yeah, that's a free spot. I don't really know how long this injury was. Did you see a timeline for this? I've heard that it may be an IR situation for the whole year.
I don't know if you saw the update today that it's a season ender.
So it's over.
It's over.
Okay, I thought it may have been like an 8-week injury, whatever.
The original thing reported was it's 4 to 5 weeks. He might come back, but then they traded for Chris Herndon, and people were like, I don't know about this. Is this would they make a trade so quickly if he was only out for a couple games, out for the year? It's a tough break for the Elk.
Yeah, the Elk just acquired him in a trade. James, what did you get in return for that?
It was Irv Smith for the draft pick that I took, Kenny Gainwell.
So it was basically Kenny Gainwell for Irv Smith.
Yeah.
And Gainwell is a guy that if Miles Sanders kind of shits the bed this year, Gainwell might get touches and show some run immediately. Who knows?
He's done all right in preseason. Boston Scott has done well for the Eagles too. So he's kind of penciled in now as the third back, Kenny Gainwell. But Miles Sanders doesn't have a new contract. I think if he plays well this year, he could get that. But we talk about all the time, coaching regimes and stuff not having allegiances to certain guys. the Eagles have a new coach. We don't know how it's going to go. So that was one of those reasons that I made this deal with the Elk back at draft time. I had no running backs at the time, so I just needed another dart throw. Irv Smith felt like a semi-luxury, but I was sad to lose him because, he before this injury, he was a popular, get him, if you're waiting on tight end, he's a good guy that's ranked around, 10, 11, 12, overall for this year, but now nothing.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. And, I don't know if this offense was ever really a tight end friendly offense, but this is a different kind of talent that they've had than recent years. Obviously Rudolph hasn't been an athletic guy recently.
Wow. This is a different kind
of guy.
10 touchdowns. I feel like 2-3 years ago he spiked with like 10 touchdowns out of nowhere. Kyle Rudolph, but
he's had his moments. Like there are some games where he'll just go off, and then other games he's literally just a blocker. And I mean, this is a guy that maybe next year, if he comes back healthy, maybe that hype train will get back going again for the Elk. But right now, looks like just a free IR slot for him. Yeah. For one of his 14 roster cuts or whatever the hell he has to.
Hey, we're down to 13 now. There we go.
I really don't even know how many it is at this point. I gotta look. All right, we'll move on. So this isn't really an injury.
No, but this
is an important thing to talk about.
A lot of things. Yeah. Well, first of all, with Sony Michel, I think as a Sony Michel owner, I was very pleased to see this move.
Yeah, the Lambs love this.
Yeah, well, he's got an opportunity. And the thing with Darrell Henderson, Sean McVay was very vocal that he was concerned about Darrell Henderson's durability. Like he had made that quote a few different times. This is after the Cam Akers injury when they're asking about, what are you guys going to do? And he's like, at this time we're not looking for other backs. But basically they said that they were going to keep Henderson out of preseason because they wanted to preserve him. And then what happens is it was reported that Henderson had a thumb injury. Oh, but he's okay. And then literally the next day is when they make this trade for Sony Michel. To me, things like that's not a coincidence, right? So there could be something where, maybe McVay and the Rams are frustrated that Henderson always has these little nicks and bruises and stuff. So they're just like, fuck it. We just want to get a guy in here. And Sony Michel is not an exciting runner. He's kind of
they paid a lot for him too. They gave up like a 4, I think, or 5.
The Rams just don't value draft picks.
At all.
They
never have any.
They never have any. So
I don't know how I think in a few years they're just gonna be totally screwed. But I mean, I have no idea. But James, I have a hot take for you.
Sure.
My hot take is I think Darrell Henderson flat out stinks. I don't think he's good.
Wow.
I think that's the reason that they made this deal. I think they just realized it's like we can't go into the year with a hurt guy that stinks.
That's true.
It doesn't work.
They have Super Bowl aspirations, Eric.
My next hot take is that I think Sony Michel kind of semi stinks. So it is an upgrade.
It is.
I don't think Michel is anything special, but in this offense, you kind of don't have to be special.
Right.
So this could work out really well for you. I really do believe that if if this is a 50-50 split and, maybe he impresses a little bit more than Henderson, or Henderson gets nicked up some more and he misses games, like Michel could turn into an RB2. I mean,
it's possible. Look,
it's not outside the realm of possibilities, in my opinion.
Look, last year, obviously Sony Michel missed a lot of games, but he averaged like 5.5 yards a carry. Now this was less than 100 carries. He had some production. The problem was his numbers were trash 2 years ago. Brady's last year in New England, their offense was obviously awful, and their offense was give the ball to Sony Michel, 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
But teams knew that was happening.
So it was kind of like set up for failure, and they just didn't really have anything then. But if you remember the last Super Bowl the Patriots won, so they ran Michel into the ground in the playoffs. He had like 400 yards, a lot of touchdowns in the playoffs. When they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, Sony Michel was their bell cow. That was his rookie year.
Yeah, I think there's definite room for rebound. I think the jury's not out on him. I really don't even know how old is he? Is he like 24 or 5? Like he's not that old.
Sony's 26.
Oh, okay, so he was a senior then when he came out.
Yeah,
he's only been in the league a few years, but I mean, he would be in his running back prime at this point then. So I mean, this is the time. So
because the Patriots declined his 5th-year option because he was a first-round pick. So this is his 4th season. So he'll be a free agent.
It's adding up now.
So he'll be a free agent after next year. The other side of this trade that I thought was big too is, like, I thought this trade was a big win for Damian Harris.
Absolutely.
On the Elk, and then also we'll throw a bone to the Muskrats after killing him. I think it's a nice boost for Randre Stevenson too, because I think there's now a
those
path.
Guys look good.
Yeah, and I think there's now a clear path to carries for a guy like Stevenson, because now with the Patriots, it's okay. Harris is our top back, Stevenson's our like high upside rookie, and then whatever, they'll work James White or whoever the hell else in for third downs. But there's like a clear pecking order. It's like, all right, here's the the third year back's the guy, but like we got this talented rookie to be hot on his heels to make sure he doesn't get too complacent. And
it's the perfect Patriots backfield.
There really wasn't a spot for Sony Michel anymore. Once the Patriots had kind of concluded that, hey, Damian Harris is the better overall running back, trading him the writing was no. There were reports as far back as May that the Patriots might cut him, and in my eyes,
he's a first-round pick.
Yeah, and I was like, please cut him. I want him to go anywhere else.
Yeah, this is the best possible scenario.
When I saw this news one day, I was like, oh, I'm very happy for this.
I can't even imagine. I forget that the Patriots are so bad at drafting all the time. Like, they took a first-round pick on Sony Michel and Aaron Dobson and all these.
But they won the Super Bowl by riding him into the ground. So I could argue that
I guess it paid off.
It was a good pick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
long term. It was not a good pick, but
no.
But it did its purpose basically, I guess. But
yeah,
who knows? Anyway, upside for an uptick for Sony Michel, a downtick for Darrell Henderson. Yeah. We'll move on to Michael Thomas, who. Yes. I mean, the damn Baton Rouge Bombers here, there's just no good news right now for their wide receiver, to be honest with you. We'll talk about a couple of those other ones later, but Michael Thomas, he's already hurt. He was already bitching at his own team. I mean, it seems like this guy's just another head case.
What a mess. He's the nephew of Chris Carter, known jackass.
Wow, like I'm not surprised.
One of the first Devo, one of the real OG diva asshole receivers, Chris Carter.
And the thing is, I've never gotten to see at this point whether or not Michael Thomas is overrated, because he had that monster year. He basically was hurt all last year. Then he's basically going to be hurt this year. I want to see if he stinks or not. I don't know.
So, all right, I'll push back a little bit. I don't think he stinks. I don't think he was ever the best receiver. The fact that he broke the catches record and all that stuff, cool, but I don't think he was really
force-fed the ball, though.
He was force-fed the ball, and they didn't really have another,
It was Traquan Smith.
Yeah, their other receivers were not that great. It was either a slant pass to Michael Thomas or a handoff to Alvin Kamara. That was the Saints' offense, and it worked. With Thomas, though, it always felt like he was more of like a mid-tier wide receiver one. Like he probably was being overdrafted when he was like the first receiver off the board the year after his crazy season.
Dynasty wise, he was like the number one receiver for a point.
For a little bit, yeah. A player that I traded years ago. So I'm very familiar with Michael Thomas, but he's a guy that I still think he has talent, but it seems like he just needs to move on from the Saints.
I would love to see them trade him.
There's no more.
They don't need
money.
him anymore, really. No, he's got a ton of money. He's got to get paid. Callaway's look good. They're probably not going to win it all this year. You might as well just move it on and just.
You want a hot take?
Get some cap space.
The Baton Rouge Bombers might be better off with Callaway for the first 5 games than a wounded and pissed off Michael Thomas.
I completely agree with that statement.
I mean, Michael Thomas didn't score a touchdown last year, and the high ankle sprain, it's tough to come back from. Now, obviously you prefer to have both of them if you're Justin and the Bombers, but the best case is that Thomas just goes on a new team next year because he has no more guaranteed money left on his deal. I think it's inevitable that he and the Saints are going to mutually part ways after the season.
Yeah, I think thank God that the Baton Rouge Bombers were able to get Callaway, because right now it looks like a big old goose egg for at least the first 6 weeks from Michael Thomas, same as last year. So it stinks, but this was an important part of the future of the Bombers. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Let's move on. T.Y. Hilton. Yeah. I didn't see how long he's going to be out. Did you, James?
I think they put him on the short-term IR, and they're keeping the rules again this year where after 3 games, a player can return from short-term IR. So the tea leaves kind of say that they expect him to just have the minimum 3-game stint, but still that's 3 games he's going to miss on the TY's on Dan's team, correct? Right, the Lampposts.
I want to say yeah. And I think at this point TY's washed. To be honest, I think sadly
Yeah.
I mean, he's not what he used to be. He was more of a depth player than anything. So this isn't like a huge loss or anything like it would have been a few years ago.
But in our dynasty league where we start all these flex players, like he's kind of like a nice flex player because it's like, there's a chance he can catch a long touchdown, so I'll throw him in there if you're really desperate. Yeah. Not desperate, but just...
He was a quality receiver for a while.
He was, absolutely. But the Colts are just a mess in general, too. So many guys getting hurt.
Well, now it's like they got the vaccine issues. They got guys getting hurt.
Every lineman's hurt.
Every lineman's hurt. Carson Wentz hurt and has COVID. Jacob Eason might be the starter. Like, I mean, who knows? Yeah. And the receiver room, like, kind of is not really impressive, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, really I'm not a giant Pittman fan, but he's their number one. Paris Campbell, I've never seen him do anything. Their third receiver, Zach Pascal, I think just got COVID too. He might not even. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with that, and he's average at best. Yeah, I mean, it's a mess there in Indy. I don't know. I feel like people that are high on Jonathan Taylor this year may be a little disappointed because I think there's going to be a lot of stack boxes.
There is. And that whole thing of, they have a great offensive line. Okay. But offensive line changes a lot year to year, and injuries can wreck an offensive line.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are a great example of like a name brand offensive line that just out of nowhere went to shit because everyone got hurt. The Colts had Anthony Costanzo retire.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Nelson's on
he has the same injury that went.
Same injury, they were surgery bros, I guess. Guy got the same surgery, and then their center too. I think had surgery or was hurt and COVID. Ryan Kelly, top 100 NFL player voted. Like that's 3 good linemen. We don't talk too much about offensive linemen, but the Colts kind of have just this like stamp. They have a great offensive line. Well, as we read a little closer, do they at this point? I need to see it again. They have
a good one, but they're not healthy.
They're not healthy, right? So
that doesn't help us right now. Yeah. I mean, dynasty wise, obviously long term it's fine, but like, if you're Sean as a Jonathan Taylor owner, you got to be a little bit concerned, heading into the year. Yeah. After having such a sick end of last year, you were kind of hoping for probably a little more than what you might get to start this year. So we'll see. But for Hilton, obviously he's not usable for the first few weeks for Dan. So that's kind of another hit to that depth that we talked about earlier for his team.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll move on again. So now I kind of came up with a little list. Obviously I didn't include everybody because we talk about every player for the entire, the entire day basically. But most of these are guys that I thought really won preseason. So we'll start right at the top with Callaway. We kind of mentioned him already. He looked phenomenal that one game with Jameis. He was going up making plays like he's like Mike Evans. Like it was crazy.
I know. Everyone was hyping Jameis on social media, and I was like, I think the real story is that Marquez Callaway made 2 amazing catches to give him
Jameis
touchdowns.
just chucked it up like he always does.
Yeah, like I watched those plays.
That was a Jameis throw if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, us Bucs fans were like, I've seen that from Jameis every year. It's just
couple with that with 4 picks, and that's a Jameis game. So.
The thing with Callaway too, there was a game last year where when Thomas was hurt, they had some other guys. He had to step into that Michael Thomas big slot role, and he actually had a pretty good game. I rostered him for a week or 2 last year, and he had a good game. He had like a 70 or 80 yard receiving game, but then immediately got hurt. So I was like, I don't know, this is a random guy. I'm just going to cut him. I wish I hadn't cut him because
he could turn into a serious. At worst, a depth player if he gets the starting job. And
even before he had that big game on that Monday night game, the camp reports were, he's playing well. He's the best receiver in camp, and he showed it in the game.
Yeah, so. It's one of those situations where, James, I'm going to do a Bucs name drop for you.
Oh boy.
So it's one thing to hear all these practice reports and all these, he's killing it, whatever. But does he take it to the game? There was one guy in the past, James. Do you remember? That was a Bucs kind of like a training camp hero.
I think
that never made it to the game. Maurice Stovall, James.
Yes,
that's the perfect.
I love Maurice Stovall.
Example of a guy that doesn't do that. Marquez Callaway definitely seems to be doing it. So that's great. A great sign.
Opportunity knocks. We'll see if he can do it when the games really count.
I mean, and for a team like Justin's that doesn't have Michael Thomas right now. If he can get half of Michael Thomas's production out of Marquez Callaway, you love that. It's phenomenal. Absolutely. So great pickup. I kind of wish I picked him up, but I was a little late to the party. I did think he was a really decent prospect too, coming out of Tennessee. He just kind of never really had that deep speed, but those kind of guys don't. These kind of guys don't get drafted high. Similar players like Colin Johnson, who I think just got cut today, which I was shocked by.
The Jags cut him, but then the Giants actually claimed. The Giants.
I don't understand that. He was a totally rostable player for the NFL. Anyway, I'm not gonna spend any time on Colin Johnson, but like those big body guys, they don't have like 4.3 speed. Otherwise, they'd be Darren Waller.
Could he be a Marquez Colston 2.0? Right.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's great. You'd love that. So we'll move on to Jacoby Myers. This is one of your guys. With Mac Jones getting named the starter, we can talk about Mac Jones too, because I got him on the list as well.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers has been targeted like the number one throughout the entire preseason. He's been the guy in camp that everybody says is the number one. They signed Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, but neither of them I've seen zero anything on those guys, and I want no part of them. To be
Kendrick Bourne he's that classic guy. He works hard. He's a good blocking receiver. He knows the scheme, but he's a good player. But his pedigree is not that great. Aguilar was at least a first-round pick years ago.
He played well last year.
Finally broke out last year. Yeah. So I would expect their top two receivers to be Aguilar and Myers, but Myers looked pretty good. And even with there was a preseason game where he caught a touchdown, had some good stuff. All the camp reports are high on him. And when he was their top receiver last year, they had
well
nothing.
Last year.
They had nothing.
He had a decent amount of yards last year. And it's funny because like when I see him play, I don't feel like this guy is like a big-bodied receiver, but he's 6'2", 200. Like he has a prototype wide receiver one build. He always plays the slot. It seems like They kind of that big slot.
It'll be interesting to see how they play it. Yeah, like if they maybe throw Bourne in the slot sometimes or Aguilar.
But
I agree with Mac Jones. I think it's a definite boost for Jacoby Myers, and obviously with Mac Jones talking about him. It's not shocking. All the reports and all the tea leaves were last week that the Patriots weren't happy with Cam mixing up the COVID protocols or whatever the hell.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
And Mac Jones, frankly, had some better numbers in the preseason. Looked good. I don't blame them for making the move.
Yeah, what do they have to lose at this point? You might as well just give the.
We know what Cam is.
We know what Cam is. He's average at best.
He had a shot last year and he kind of blew it.
Some of those games were miserable to watch. I hate every year I find like 3 or 4 teams that like when they're on TV, I have just no interest in watching. Last year, every year it seems like the Ravens. I never want to watch the Ravens because I have zero investment in them, and then I just hate their offense. And then that last year it was like the Patriots because that team with that read option, whatever, it's just not. It's not conducive to great fantasy numbers unless your quarterback is like literally like Kyler Murray or some shit. So it's for the Patriots, why not hand the keys to Mac Jones? Because if you remember, like Cam Newton's kind of this like player guy, like he's a relatable guy. Everybody in the locker room likes Cam. He's a fun guy to be around. So let's just get him the hell out. Yeah. And like this, we're not fucking around. It's Mac Jones's time. You better get under his ass instead of Cam Newton's ass, because I could have seen a situation where Cam starts and the players love him, and then they're talking about benching him. Then it becomes a problem in the locker room. This is the right move for the Patriots for sure. Yeah,
and Belichick and the Patriots are always going to get out in front of those kind of
they're
things.
They're not messing around with character or like locker room shit. That's the last thing they mess around with. So for the cheese fries, it's going to be nice for him to see what he might have long term as far as having a nice little backup to Mahomes.
I'd almost expect to see him on the trade block. As soon as he has a good game.
Hey, if
someone needs a quarterback, the cheese fries are going to be open for business. So we'll see.
If you're kind of looking for a young quarterback like Mac Jones, definitely might be one of those guys you see floated around because he's just not going to need him long term. So it makes a lot of sense. Let's keep moving on. So we talked about J.K. Dobbins going down, but Gus Edwards goes from basically a flex player, RB4, RB3 kind of guy, all the way up to probably an RB2 now.
I think so. Yeah, and
he's going to get tons of work.
This is huge for the Swallows, obviously, with losing Akers. This doesn't fully replace Akers, but this is a nice little. All right, hey, this is a nice positive thing for his team. that Gus Edwards has this opportunity.
Like you said, positive, because it's been a lot of negativity around the Swallows, unfortunately, with the injuries. So this is a nice boost.
And look, when Gus gets the ball, he produces. Like,
I love Gus Edwards.
Yeah,
I love him. Every time he touches the ball, I'm happy to see him run the ball.
Right. He's like a nice compliment to the slashing style running of Lamar Jackson. Like it's always good to have, like his nickname, Gus the Bus. Just a freaking power back. Hey,
the LaRon McClain vibes are there.
Yes. I love it.
Same number, I think, too.
Yeah.
I think he was 44. Never mind. 44. I was thinking, what's Gus, 35?
I think it was 35.
That's a quality running back number, too. That's how I evaluate running backs, is whatever the numbers are.
We probably hate Sony Michel. I think he's number 14 or some bullshit.
What?
Yeah, disgusting.
He changed his number to 14?
Disgusting. Yeah.
That is so. I mean, we've talked about this on Battlefront. I'm sick of these new number setups. I hate it. I hate that Leonard Fournette's 7. I hate that running backs can be 14 now. Why not just leave it alone? It was fine the way it was. It was totally fine. I guess the players love it, and the NFL is always trying to throw a bone to players because they fuck them somewhere else. So I get it, but I mean, come on. I can't. If I have to see, like, my least favorite right now is seeing any player that picks number 1, because that automatically tells me you're a dick. Yeah. Like, I don't like Jalen Darden picks number 1.
I know.
Dude, you're a rookie. Bro. Shut the hell up, bro. Like, get number 86 and get back in line. Like,
exactly.
I don't know. I get sick of that crap. But so anywho, 14. That might be the worst running back number you can pick, actually. So except for 50. Yeah. If you pick a running back in the 50s, it'd be amazing.
We'll probably see it soon. Random ass numbers, but yeah.
I feel like there's gonna be one of those like Jared Allen type personalities. It's like, I'm just gonna pick the dumbest shit. Yeah. And then you'll see some like running backs that are like 69 or something. Be stupid. Moving on, Randre Stevenson for the Muskrats here now. And Rhamondre is a guy I really liked prior to the draft. I hated the landing spot at the time.
Right.
But this is why you always take talent.
Yes.
This 100%. Is why, James. You take your guys that you think are going to be good, because if they're good enough, they will get on the field. It's just things happen and they will get on the field. So I was stupid enough to pass on him because of the situation, and I didn't feel like I had time to be wasting with running backs that are 4-string at the time on the depth chart. So this is a great wake-up call to take guys that you like.
Yeah. The cream rises to the top. And if he is that player and he'll get his opportunity, he looked great in preseason, and he had like 100-yard, 2-touchdown game in the preseason. The Patriots like to run the football. The Muskrats might be forced to start him at the RB2. We're talking about Swift and Etienne being out. This might be
probably gonna have to be on the field for the Muskrats.
Yeah.
Stevenson, I'll just say one thing about his talent. Like, there's one thing that when I watch running backs or any film on running backs for that matter, if you see a guy that's big and has good feet, you just draft him. They just don't come around that often.
That's fair.
Derrick Henry is a perfect example of that. Yeah. Like, that guy, yes, he stiff arms everybody and trucks people, but if you ever watch his feet, he's an absolute ballerina. And there's a couple other guys that are like that. Nick Chubb, big back that can move his feet. Rhamondre is kind of cut from that same cloth. I'm not going to say that he's those guys. But like, I would not be shocked if you see Rhamondre Stevenson, and he can catch and he can pass block. So like, I think there's like legitimate like breakout potential at some point for him. But
all right,
great pick by the Muskrats, or formerly known as the Silly Nannies at the time. I love the pick. So huge upside there. James Robinson, we talked about him a little bit. He got the bump from the Etienne news.
I mean, look, I thought it was a stupid pick when, for the Jags to take Etienne. It's like,
did anybody think that was a smart pick?
Urban Meyer, probably the only person. Yeah,
just the Jaguars organization.
Yeah. And maybe Trevor Lawrence, because that was his teammate.
We got to keep him happy.
Look, James Robinson had literally the best season for an undrafted rookie ever.
And like 400 yards.
And what do the Jags do? Let's draft a running back in the first round. Oh, we're going to use him as a wide receiver. But then draft a wide receiver. Like,
not only did he have 1,400 yards, James, he did it when everybody knew he was going to run the ball.
Yeah.
They had like 9 man. They probably had 11-man fronts, and he still ran for like 5 yards of carry. And he caught the ball, and he passed blocks. But they're like, no, because I remember reading right after the draft that they were targeting Kadarius Toney, which is fucking hilarious. Like, which that would have made me laugh even harder than Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
But like, I guess this was the fallback was Travis Etienne, so they just fucked me basically. But
they just wanted a speed guy. But yeah, I mean, James Robinson saved your ass last year, and now it looks like
he might do it again.
He might do it. I expect him to be. I mean,
if I win another championship this year because of James Robinson, I will buy his jersey, James. I already have to get a Kelsey jersey, but this might be my second one.
I think you'd be obligated to if he was that good again.
James RB1 season. I'll take another one, please. He's just one of those just rare guys that you just get lucky on. I'm not even going to take credit for him. He was just a complete diamond in the rough. Next up, Jameis Winston. I mean, he's going to put up fantasy numbers, James.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will push back on is the Saints and Sean Payton, especially, he's going to still put Taysom Hill in there. If they can take Drew Brees out in the red zone and give the ball to Taysom Hill, obviously they're going to do that with Jameis Winston too. But so the pushback there is that he might lose some more red zone opportunities, right? Because they may bring in Taysom Hill for whatever the hell they want to do. But yeah, Jameis Winston is at this point now is a nice high upside QB2 is how I would say it, right?
Yeah, I mean he was nothing last year. So
he was nothing last year, but we all kind of knew that he would eventually get another chance to start. It's not like the Saints have, we've belabored the issue with Michael Thomas. There's not a whole lot of pass catching talent there, and they even like their tight end room has had some injuries. Like there's not besides Kamara, there's not a proven skill position talent on the Saints right now. So that's a little worrisome for that. But Winston should be all right.
And I should have put it on the injury page, but Adam Troutman is going to be banged up to start the year too. That's another skill player there too, and a little bit of a hit for the depth for the Baton Rouge Bombers, but they also have Hawkinson and Pitts, so not a problem for them. So we got Mac Jones, Sony Michel. We already talked about them. I put Chris Herndon on here because he's gonna get tight end 1 reps at some point. I mean, and now with Irv out, and Herndon was kind of a breakout sleeper guy for quite a while. He just never really put it together.
Never really could work out with the Jets. Now it could be one of those things where just maybe a change of scenery is all he needed to flourish.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And he could stink either way.
He could stink.
He could just be a shitty player. But for Tibbs, like all these guys that he's scooping up on the waiver wire, like you said with Mac Jones, you can see these guys on the trade block as soon as they play well, and it's a perfect scenario for Tibbs. He's just going to try to play spoiler all year with these waiver wires. So. I'm really intrigued because this is something that Alex didn't do when he was rebuilding. I hate to shit on Alex all the time, but never mind, I love it. But at the same time, I never saw Alex, actively scooping up guys and then trying to move them. He usually just let them die on his roster.
Yeah, Eric. The biggest sin on that is that he had James Robinson last year and then didn't hold on to him like that.
For Benjamin James.
Yeah, it's just. That's all I'm going to comment on that. So
there's been quite a few guys that, I understand there's roster churn with every team, right? But there are some guys, especially running backs. I really don't churn running backs. I got to at least hold them and just see what happens.
Yeah.
I really try not to
see what the usage is, maybe see some, yeah.
And because you might hit gold. The one guy I already regret dropping, because I was trying to find diamonds other places was Ty Johnson with the Jets.
Yeah.
Because now it looks like he's probably going to get half the touches.
That's very true.
I probably fucked up because I was churning other positions. I probably should have just held the running back.
On him. Look, carries are in short supply, or not short supply. There's a finite supply of carries across the NFL. If you think about
Absolutely.
it, right?
If you're going to get any carries, you're valuable.
Right. So, and the margin of difference on the talent level with running backs. All right, if you're Derrick Henry, Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Chubb, one of those top guys, you're I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about running backs 10 through starters 10 through 30 in the league. Those guys are not that much better than players 30 through 50. If we're talking about the 50 best running backs in the league. So with injury, you want to get these guys that are maybe an injury away or a bad start to a season for one particular guy away. To have a guy, so yeah, you want to just collect as many of these running backs as you can and see who hits.
Absolutely. So we will move on to the losers. We talked about Cam Newton. I won't go on much more about that.
Yeah.
This is another injury guy that I didn't really throw on the injury list, but Kenny Golladay has not done shit at any point during this training camp or preseason because he's been banged up. This was a guy that at one point was like a wide receiver 3 on my team. Now he's not even in my starting lineup. Obviously I have other guys to play, but
he's had some hamstring injuries. He just like can't,
can't seem to do anything.
Can't get healthy.
Do what you got to do, bro. Like,
look, and the hot take, sort of thing. I like not the hot take, like the lazy take I could say is, oh, he got paid, he doesn't care, and all this stuff.
He might not care, James.
But again,
he went to Northern Illinois. He might not give a shit.
That could be true. Yeah. We'll see.
And that, if it's a Michael Clayton checks in the bank, then I got to live with it, James. I don't know.
We'll see.
That being said, I think he's a good talent. I think the talent is there. The only thing that concerns me is he's never been an elite talent to me, and to succeed in an offense as bad as the Giants is, I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if it's going to be a situation, like a DeAndre Hopkins goes from one situation to another, and he's the same player as he was. I don't see that happening with Kenny.
I don't think I kind of agree. I don't really think that's
Kenny. Kenny had a 1,200-yard season with 11 touchdowns when he's the number 3 overall wide receiver at one point, and he'll never get there again. There's no way. I don't see it happening. Not with Danny Dimes. So anyway, he's a loser just because he's been banged up and he hasn't really done shit to start with this year. So I'm kind of just waiting and seeing on him. Here's a couple of interesting ones. Travis Fulgham. This guy was like a fantasy sweetheart darling.
Fantasy folk hero last year, yeah. And now he's cut.
He literally is not even on a roster anymore. He's not on Tibbs' roster anymore either. I'm just throwing the most recent team for some of these guys. That one kind of stings because he's a guy that he probably should have traded now, looking in hindsight, try to get peak value for him. How were you supposed to know at the time?
Tibbs was trying to compete last year, so he needed players like...
Yeah, Fulgham was starting for him last year.
It was. So it certainly was.
Moving on, Des Fitzpatrick was Alex's 4th round pick this year. Didn't even make the team as a 4th round pick, which I find to be unbelievable.
It's crazy.
That there's a couple guys like that. Antonio Gandy-Golden's the other one for Alex. That he was a 4th round pick for Washington, 3rd round pick for Alex. Didn't even make the team. So those two are pretty big disappointments there. Jamar Chase, James.
That's the biggest one. He
looks like ass. And there's no way to put it.
In my sort of pre-draft evaluations when I was doing some of my own stuff, like one of the things that I kind of honed in on Jamar Chase is like, will a year off of football affect him? And I think that question is warranted now. He's dropping passes. There's just not good camp reports. I think there's concern. He's not a player that I would want to start early in the season. I'll put it that way.
I think long term he'll be fine.
Long term he'll be okay. He'll figure it out. Maybe he needs that slap in the face, type of rookie year to be like, whoa, I got to really get my shit together again here.
Yeah, now he kind of reminds me of like a Scott Potter. He's just kind of scared to go over the middle. He's not catching passes. He's kind of clanking off his hands, and it screams to me like a guy that's just like not ready to play in the NFL yet. And he's like, unfortunately, this is a Bombers player that he kind of was hoping to get some utilization out of, especially now with Thomas being out. He was probably hoping for a little more instant production. So it looks like he's just going to have to wait a little longer at this point. I still think Jamar Chase is a supremely talented player. It's just a matter of kind of getting the mental yips out of his head.
Yeah, it just in this season, I wouldn't expect too much. So we'll see.
No, completely agree. He's probably a year 2 or year 3 kind of guy at this point for me. Javian Hawkins, you drafted him towards the end of the draft. I actually really like Javian Hawkins.
Yeah.
I thought he was good. That's why that's why I put him on the list, because I thought he had a chance to kind of be at least like a 3rd down scat back for that team or something, and he didn't even make it on the Titans or the Falcons.
No, and the Falcons cut him early. Yeah, the Falcons cut him early. Yeah, it was one of those things where like the Falcons
total long shot, but
behind Mike Davis, they had literally nothing. So it was like, oh, they brought this guy on. Maybe he impresses in OTAs and camps. There was never really any buzz. I think there was more buzz for the other undrafted guy they had.
Yeah, it was Huntley. I liked Huntley better, and neither of them made the team. So it's just
neither of them made it.
It's become everybody's trying to find the next James Robinson, and
Right.
And more obviously, why wouldn't you? But like at the same time, that just shows you like there's not many of those guys.
No, it doesn't happen.
That especially the
year.
undrafted guys, it just never really happens. It was a fluky type of thing. So, and then we got Rashad Bateman, who is going to miss a decent portion of the year.
That's a tough one because he was looking good early in camp, and he kind of had that prototype of like the number one receiver that the Ravens have kind of been looking for, because Marquise Brown is kind of miscast as like a number one option in the NFL. He's just not really.
He's a classic player that stinks.
I don't think he's that bad. I think he's got some talent. I just think he needs, like, I hate to use the,
he's going to be like a Tavon Austin type of career.
I think he'll be a little better than that. Jeez, come on, Tavon Austin.
Well, who's got him right now? Is it you? Is that what you're defending?
I drafted Marquise Brown. He was part of our big CeeDee Lamb trade. So the Bombers.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He ends up going to the Bombers. Yes.
But on Bateman, like it seemed like he was going to be that guy that was profiling as a number one, and then he gets hurt. It's unfortunate. Again, for the Elk, the Elk are probably hoping that he ends up on short-term IR so he can stash him.
Yeah, it's another stash option. I can see it happening because I think he's supposed to be out like 4 or 5 weeks. So it adds up.
I haven't seen anything come through yet that they've officially put him on IR or anything. So
I haven't seen many players at all, like across the league. Like there's not many yet that have been put on that. So I don't know if they have to wait until a certain time. Because I got like right now, like I got Evan Ingram, who's like supposedly hurt, and a potential IR guy, but like he's still like questionable showing up. Like I'm wondering if they're just behind on all that. But
yeah, I mean before next week, all that will get cleared up. But yeah,
right. And then we to finish out this list, we got Latavius Murray, who's been pretty much a rock solid like flex kind of guy over the last few years.
When
and
Alvin Kamara missed games, he was useful.
It appears now that there's talk about Tony Jones being the second back, and I watched a couple of the preseason games for the Saints, and Murray looks like he's running in dog shit. Like he looks awful. So I don't know if he just took the offseason off to eat Twinkies or something, but he does not look good. As soon as I saw the game, I saw him run a few times, and I saw Tony Jones run. I was like, okay, I'll go pick up Tony Jones because that does not look good.
That doesn't look good. Well, even the camp reports were that like Latavius Murray might even get cut because he has like
he's got a ton of money. Like I think his salary is huge, but he doesn't have any guaranteed money. Yeah,
so it was one of those things that I thought he might get cut, but I guess they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's been a solid thunder back to
I mean, yeah, he's one of those guys too that he's been around long enough that he's probably developed some leadership type of aspects too. So they probably don't want to just get rid of him if they don't have to.
But I agree. Yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily this like instant flex option for Sean that he has been in the past, right? Where when Kamara's gone down, he's been like a locked and loaded RB1. If Kamara got hurt for a week, I kind of agree with you that I think the Saints might go with more of Tony Jones.
I think they would. Yeah, I think it would be like a split of some kind.
It would be more of a split than in years past, where like Murray would almost get RB1 usage on the weeks that Kamara would miss.
Yeah, and even on the weeks that Kamara would play, he'd still get his like 10 carries for like 40-something yards.
Yeah,
and, still have some relevance. So we'll move on here from the losers to the heavily anticipated Dynabook segment. This is, I'll just say a quick thank you to James for doing all of the Dynabook stuff and all of the recent analytical spreadsheets and all that for us to enjoy and look at. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Because it definitely makes it more fun for the league. We have all kinds of things that keep this league fun in the off season. So appreciate it.
Yeah.
So these are James's lines, so I'll let you go ahead and talk about them.
All right. Well, here, I'll kind of start high level, and we'll work our way to some of the teams, and I'll kind of bounce some of my points off you. But so the biggest thing to note is that this year we're moving from 13 games to 14 games. So we all got to kind of rack our brains that there's an extra game. But these totals add up to 70, right? So because 14 weeks, and there's going to be 5 winners each week. 14 times 5 is 70. So that's how that happens. And then to actually bet on these things, right? It's minus 125 on either side. So if you want to bet the over or the under, minus 125 line means if you bet 5, you win 4. If you bet 10, you win 8. So just to kind of keep it simple there.
Sweet.
With it, with this, Eric, I moved you on top here in large part due to the J.K. Dobbins and James Robinson sort of switcheroos. I kind of felt that alone was enough at this point to kind of keep you at the top there at a projected 10 wins, and then Dan and the lamppost right behind there at 9. do believe that the battle axes and sort of that just like league wide, that like league wide respect and admiration for the battle axes franchise. They, a proven franchise, 8.5 wins. They've gotten some nice things from, Jamal Williams is a player that's seen his value gone up. Obviously, these trades are good for him too.
Yeah, a couple of guys.
Yeah, so like that, and obviously the Battle Axes have been a top 2 seed for the past two seasons now. So we know he's going to be in. We know he's going to be in the mix again. So we'll see. And then kind of the next 5 teams, I kind of just want to talk all in tandem. This is where I kind of really feel is like the muck, right? It's that, or next, the Long Gamers, the Swallows, myself, the Elk, and the Bombers, right? 5 teams all kind of in that, 7 wins, right? Like all 5 of these teams could be, the 7-7, which is nice. This year, we have an even number of games, so teams can go in that perfect 500 range, right? 7-7. Do you have any thoughts?
I definitely agree with that. I think you have it laid out pretty much exactly how I'd have it laid out. I think I may have gone a little bit less for the Elk. I might take the under on the Elk, to be honest.
Okay.
There's a couple, like I can see just me betting on a few of these already. I feel like the Bombers being at 7 feels weird because I had talked them up so much during the offseason.
Yeah.
But like now, after seeing injuries and the way camp is shaken out for a couple of guys like Chase and Thomas and all these other, like I feel like 7 is probably a pretty safe number there too. Yeah. I don't even know. Does Alex get to 4 wins? I don't see it. I might take the under.
Take the under.
I might take the under, dude. I don't. He might get 2 wins against the cheese fries, but
right.
It depends. Does he play them twice? That's the question.
I think he does because he plays in week 1. So whoever you play,
definitely. Then it's up to. Yeah, so it would be.
Whoever you play in week 1, you definitely play twice.
Yeah, it's whoever you play up to what, week 4 then?
No, I believe it would be week 5.
So okay, so anybody in the first 5 weeks are going to play twice then.
Correct.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I don't see. I might take the under on cheese fries, but like there's so many great options here.
Yeah, like the cheese fries, I had it 2.5 for a while, but then on these last few trades, I was like, I can't even give him 2 wins. But
like, I love Patrick Mahomes, but even if he puts up 50 with that squad, I still don't think they're going to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason I had to keep it at 2 and not 2.5 is because I think 2 wins is where he gets. Because I think Mahomes will steal a win somehow, and he'll get, again, even Alex's team stole a win last year. I remember like Rex Burkhead had some massive game or some bullshit. Like Tibbs will get one of those type of games where some random asshole he starts just goes off with a Mahomes, and maybe his opponent has a really bad week that week.
Yeah.
But for what you really be betting here is that he's only going to get 1 win because, if it lands on the number, it's just a push, right? If the cheese fries end up with 2 wins, it's just that bet just voids. So obviously like the ones there in the middle, the 8.5s and the 7.5s, there's going to be a
definitive one way or
there's going to be a definitive winner no matter what happens there. But for some of these lower ones, I was like, man, I can't, the house can't give away 2 wins to the cheese fries with that there on a roster.
Yeah. I mean, for the muck, I really don't feel too strongly about one way or the other. So I don't know if I'm going to bet on any of those.
Quite frankly, I think the best value is in the muck. Like if anyone feels very strongly about obviously their own team, or if you feel strongly about other teams, that is because look, I'll even say it here. Keeping the lamppost at 9 was even a little tough for me because that running back depth, once you lose Dobbins, and I was looking at his team, like I think Kenyon Drake maybe was the 3rd back that I saw. Like Kenyon Drake's fine, but after that, it falls off a cliff, and it's tough when you don't have the running back depth. Yeah,
I mean that's the thing is I would be scared to bet on one like that just because one injury could completely derail that whole thing. I think the one out of the muck that if I had to bet on one, I might take the over on the Long Gamers because of recent trades. Obviously.
Sorry. So let me ask you on this. You had them in your power rankings thing. You had them lower than I thought. that you would.
Yeah,
like,
it's funny because like now, so what's happened recently is, we got the regular draft coming up, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing mock drafts. So I'm changing my views on certain players.
Right,
so once I look at the Long Gamers roster, if JT and Clyde end up just meeting expectations, like even if they just get to their expectations of probably second and third round value, then the fact that you got Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown and a couple other quality receivers after that, on top of Lamar Jackson, on top of
that's the big wild card, I think, is Lamar Jackson. The biggest thing with Sean's team is so weird. It's, he 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson had that MVP season, like I remember Sean made like a little late charge to maybe steal the last playoff spot, but the rest of his team just wasn't ready to compete yet. Obviously, he didn't have Jonathan Taylor or Clyde yet.
No. So
it was literally Lamar Jackson and friends was his team.
Another thing, James, though, is Sean's running back depth is impressive. So that's the one thing that I think from the flex perspective or injury perspective, over the course of the season, like what team do I see in the muck that has maybe the most potential to withstand some injuries? I think it might actually be the Long Gamers. So you got like Raheem Mostert, you got Mike Davis, you got there's another guy in there I'm just missing off the top of my head.
Devin Singletary
is like he's serviceable. I just feel like there's guys, and he's got Cortland Sutton and DJ Moore. I mean, like he's got quality flex options. So I think some of his flex options are better than some of the other ones in this muck. So
that's fair.
I feel like I might take the over on that one.
No. Okay. Yeah. Like when I was kind of like handicapping the Long Gamers and like the little like preview thing that I wrote up in the Dynabook thing that I shared, what I kind of highlighted was that in my opinion, the real strength of the Long Gamers is that running back depth. Like you said, Jonathan Taylor, Clyde, solid RB1, solid RB2. Like if you got that in your redraft team, you'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, looks fine.
But I do think the real strength of his team is that he has some viable options at RB1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he's got the top guys that are at least comparable. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. You mentioned Cortland Sutton coming off injury. I think that's a key player because
he could be really good.
Yeah, but the Long Gamers starting receiver trio is great. You mentioned Brown.
You don't even need him.
DJ Moore. But after that, after Sutton falls off a cliff.
Yeah, I do agree with that. There's literally nobody else.
And
that's because he's investing all this crap in running backs.
And that's fine. That's what you should do. And with receivers, that sort of random receiver market for a third round pick is always open. There's guys that they're the Travis Fulghams. If you can, make that waiver claim, whoever this year's Travis Fulgham is, if Sean can make that kind of claim, that'll help. I do just worry about his wide receiver depth and his tight end talent.
It's
like
not great. Gesicki and
Goddard.
They're
just kind of like meh.
One of them could break out, but I'm not very high on either one of those guys.
I would say that's probably like bottom third of the league, like starting tight end group.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
there's other teams, like I feel like there's some teams hoarding some of the tight ends. Of course, you got like the Bombers with Hawkinson and Pitts, Troutman, and like so. If I'm Sean, I'm going out trying to find a tight end. Like that would be the one spot. If you look at his team from top to bottom, obviously the wide receiver depth isn't great, but I would be looking for a really quality tight end. Now in hindsight, if he could have found a way to swing that not Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews trade with Alex prior to the draft, then you have the Lamar Jackson Mark Andrews stack, which would have been pretty nice. And I think that would have kind of rounded out his roster if he could have pulled.
Or maybe he could have went to Tibbs for Logan Thomas, or when he did that Tyreek Hill trade, he said, "Hey,
I like Logan Thomas better than Goddard and Gesicki for sure."
I would agree with that.
So it's an upgrade. It's not a huge one, but it's an upgrade. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see. But I'm a fan of the Long Gamers, and I definitely think I've turned it around since my recent power rankings too. So James, if you got to bet one of these right now, who are you betting?
Well, obviously I made the lines, but here I
want to hear who you're feeling about though.
All right, here I'll kind of run through all the teams here and like what I would bet over, under, or pass. All right,
okay, perfect.
For you at 10. Like I would just pass because that's a bet. Like I think that's kind of where you may fall. Not confident enough, like
I'm not taking over at all.
To project anyone for 11 wins, is a lot.
I would not take the over. I would
say under
or nothing.
Yeah, like I think, with the Devontae Adams trade, I'm like, this team could have an awesome year. I'm going to stay away. The lamppost, I would take the under. Like I said, I almost put this one at 8.5.
I'm with you.
But I the respect out there though for Dan's been a consistent team. His top level receivers are still really solid. I did like the Mark Andrews trade. Josh Allen is a guy that we kind of just like don't even talk about. But I'm so blown away by his numbers for his career. He produces as like a flex running back in addition to being a quarterback.
Yeah, he's
which is
insane. He gets like 7 or 8 touchdowns a year for sure.
So his first 2 years, he was fantasy relevant, but didn't really have the passing. Now that he's an elite passer, well, actually, here I'm gonna dial it back. He's stepped up as a passer.
I think he's a quality passer.
He's a quality passer.
Yeah,
and with the rushing, so there's a lot of reasons to.
I love Josh Allen. I mean, obviously, I'm a Bills fan, so
there's a lot of reasons to believe the lamppost should still be a top team. I just, we're going to keep them at 9, but the Dynabook, betting would be the under there. And then the battle axes, I would also take the under. But again, when I make these lines, I kind of try and do with an eye to what,
my gut on his was pass or over, to be honest.
Pass or over. Okay. I try and straddle the line of, all right, like, let me put my opinions in this, but also what I think the league as a whole would do.
Yeah. I really think you nailed them, because there's a lot of these I have to really think about. Yeah. If there's not one I look at, I'm like, oh, it's an obvious over.
Obvious.
So like clearly you nailed it. Yeah.
We all have different opinions on certain places. Yeah. So the battle axes, I would take the under, and again, I would cite running back depth and those sorts of things. But we'll see. This team, he finished as the 2 seed last year without George Kittle really even doing anything. So he gets George Kittle back this year. So that could be a boost for him as well.
Yeah. We talked about the long gamers.
Yeah.
The Swallows at 7.5.
Here, also for the long gamers 7.5, I would pass on that one. Just because Sean's team for me is because it's so top heavy on receivers, and the running backs, like Jonathan Taylor is a low end one for me. Clyde is a low end 2 for me. Like all those players are kind of more on like the lower end spec. Like they're all options, but to me, they're all like, okay. Like if
none of them are very inspiring, we'll put it that way.
Right. If Jonathan Taylor either gets hurt or if the Colts really are a train wreck, everybody's got to slot up a spot. And I don't know if that's really competitive with the other teams. Right.
I see that. I mean, for me, I believe in the running back, so I would take the over, but I understand.
Okay. Now these next two, I would go over. Now I was, for the Swallows,
I would take over for you for sure.
Okay.
I would feel good about that.
Obviously, with McCaffrey coming back, that's what we're banking on a lot of this season for. Hopefully, I can
just the fact that you have McCaffrey, Mixon, Eckler. I think that's enough to get you 7.
We'll see. Look, I made that trade in part with Tibbs, in part because I felt that it put, like, by making that move, obviously I passed Tibbs, and personally I felt that I passed the 2 teams behind us in terms of just looking at the roster. But again, I was dead wrong last year on some of my stuff. So
I'm wrong all the time. So
we'll see how it plays out. And with the Swallows, I think the depth, the little Dynabook charts that I show and everything, the depth top to bottom might be some of the best. Like there's a
lot of good players on his team.
When you do mock drafts, there's a lot of Swallows players in rounds like 3 through 7. You're like, Swallows players. And like
depth will win.
If he can make the right starts week in and week out, he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he has probably the biggest collection of quality players, arguably in the whole league, like top to bottom.
Yeah. And like I said, for myself, I would say the over. That's obviously biased, but I think 7.5 is at least fair. I do think my receiver depth and tight end depth is a little in question. We'll see. We'll see. And obviously, I have zero future picks to trade. So if I get hit with injuries again, I'm kind of just screwed. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, but I definitely I like your team. I would take the over for you.
Okay. And then because of the picks thing for the Elk, I think I would just pass.
I'm passing on this one. I have no idea.
Because I don't really know. And again, Dustin could wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm tired of everyone making fun of me for having all these future picks. I'm cashing them all in for, who knows what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Kamara already. That's as good as you can probably get at running back, and you got other quality players.
He's got great, 2 great quarterbacks.
He's got a bunch of good young receivers. Like none of them are great, but he's got a lot of prospects too. He's got like Devontae Smith. He's got Rashad Bateman. I mean, he's got capital. He's got ways that he could. Like you said, we don't know what he's doing, but if he chooses to do one or another, you could really cash in on this 7.
Yeah. If you believe and you want to do it, go for it. The next one with the Bombers, I originally had them at 6.5, so I would recommend the under on this one, but I kicked it back up to 7 because one of the takeaways for myself when I kind of ran through that little chart with all the depth stuff was it kind of reminded me that the Bombers have some favorable players towards what other people like, and the fact that he has 2 nice options at tight end can't be understated. So.
Yeah, I think the tight ends are really good. I'm actually a little concerned with the quarterbacks, though. I want to see what Burrow looks like. Actually, I want to see what some of these quarterbacks look like before I'm back all in on the
Burrow train. No,
I keep trying to say Hurricanes, but the Bombers. I love the team. Chase is ticking down right now. Michael Thomas is ticking down. I'm not a great fan of the quarterbacks right now. I just feel there's too many question marks to take any sort of over here. So it'd be pass or lower for me.
Yeah. The Muskrats, I think I might go under here or pass. I don't know. I had this one at 4.5 for a while. I toyed with it maybe at 3.5. I kind of just settled on 4 because last year he had 2 wins. We add a game. Najee Harris is a top 15 pick in redraft. So, he's at least has a seat at the table, I would say, but he's got a seat at the table with not a whole lot else besides Najee Harris. Like the receivers are all kind of not ho-hum, but like they're younger players that
they're just upside guys right now.
They're upside guys. So until we see something more substantial out of those guys, yeah.
Yeah, I think 4 is you just pass and just call it a day. Like I probably wouldn't bet on them.
Yeah. And then the last one, pass as well. Like to bet on a team to have 1 win is tough because they could get lucky. But if someone wants to do it,
I can't do it. I can't do it because they have Pat Mahomes. I can't do it. There's 1 week he's going to go off for 70 and just win.
Right.
I just can't do it. It's not in my heart.
Yeah. And 2 kind of feels like the right number because that Alex was rebuilding last year and he had 2 wins. It seems similar where Tibbs could kind of just fart his way into 2 wins. So
it's certainly possible. So but at the end of the day, I think that's a pass as well. So
yeah.
So that's Dynabook, guys. That's what we got so far as far as win totals. I mean,
I'll post these again in the channel, and if anyone would like to act on these, the process is just state your declaration in that channel on the chat, and I will record it on the other file that I keep.
So at this point, James, can you talk on the Dynabook financial standing right now? Are they in the hole at this point?
Well, because of the waffle thing, it is actually in the positive. Now we're waiting to collect on the cash bets that would be paid out, but Dynabook would not feel right taking that money in after the bad waffle showing. So those will just all be netted out later in the year. So sort of the process of it is going to be like
trying to wait till the end of the year kind of thing.
Yeah, well, because all of these bets and the win totals and the championship odds, all those things, it's we're not going to know who the winner is until the end of the year anyway. So kind of it'll be like a year. If it's something that we keep going, it'll be like a yearly thing where I say, okay, hey, hey Eric, you made $40 in bets and you won, $50. So I owe you 10. Or hey Eric, you made $25 in bets and you lost them all, so you owe $25. So it'll be like that kind of thing. Like I said, I posted the Dynabook thing or the Dynabook file back in the spring. I can post it again at some point.
So James, I do have a question for you, and this could be something that might end up being sponsored by Dynabook.
Oh.
What do you think about bringing back the old Yahoo Pick'em for each week?
Oh,
because that was a ton of fun. I always really enjoyed that. But obviously, I'm not gonna do like 211 again, giving away 211.
Yeah,
but I would not be upset with giving up a 311 to have like a yearly pick'em winner. I mean, obviously, it's hard to keep up with it for some people, but if there was some way that we could make it happen, I would like to propose the idea.
We could do something. I think maybe an easier way, and this would be a way to encourage people to make bets, would be whoever has the highest account balance at the end of the year gets like in addition to their winnings, they also get pick 311, right? So if let's say Alex, he comes in, he finishes 4-10 as expected, but hey, he did a great job on betting on other people, so he actually had the highest betting account. Then he would get his bet winnings and pick 311. I think that.
So would that be the total amount of money, or would it just be like the highest accuracy rate? Like
no, it would be like the net profit. Because like within the Dynabook file I have, like each player has like like what that player's net is. It's just whoever would have the highest net, the highest net profit on their betting. So
that makes a lot of sense. I think that'd be a really cool way to do it, because not only would it be just for like pick'em games, it could be for just like season long betting.
Yeah, because there's other prop bets out there. I threw one in there about Dustin versus Vince, because those two have been going at it over lots of things. There's some there's some Henry Ruggs prop bets in there that that people can make if they want. Once we get into season, doing lines every week would be too much. But
that's a lot of work. Yeah.
But for example, like when we get to the playoffs, I would definitely do lines for the playoff games. I'll probably I
think it'd be a good way to get people encourage people to do Dynabook in general,
right?
To keep things moving.
I'll probably do like a reforecast on the title odds, maybe like mid-season. We'll do something like that. And I will have to kind of also close some of these bets out, right? Because you can't, if by some miracle Tibbs starts out 3-0, you can't bet on Tibbs to get more than 2 wins, because
after that it's over. Yeah.
So probably after like week 2 or that'll be again. This is just a new thing we're trying. It'll be at honestly just my discretion if I think it's a fair bet
that's
or not.
Totally fine. And in the Discord I will put a poll up. We'll see if we can get 7 people on board with the 311 idea. Then we'll go ahead and implement something. But I would like to have at least 7 because I know some people might be opposed to it. So, but I think it'd be a fun way to kind of bring that back to life, because I always had fun picking the games. It was always fun to see if I could get them right or not. So I believe that's the end of our little slideshow here. So I will go ahead and say sayonara for this episode, and this is probably going to be the last episode prior to the season. So I'm going to try to see if maybe I can make this like a weekly thing during the year. I mean, it's going to be hard to commit to that. But I would like to see if we can get some recaps from maybe even if it's quarterly, like every 4 weeks or something.
No, I think like the semi-arbitrarily quarterly type thing.
To review some matchups, like see where people are at. I do not want to stop the podcast during the season. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
That's right.
This kind of started as the idea just to eat up some time during the off season. But obviously, I think people enjoy this, so we'll just keep it rolling throughout the season. So thanks everybody again for watching. James, thanks first of all for doing Dynabook again. And then
happy to do it.
Hopping on and talking about some of the total lines and some of the off-season happenings and preseason happenings. So we'll see y'all later.